Hi everyone. This is your first lecture after you took your first test. It's on nutrition. The three priority behaviors in this class are increasing physical activity, improving our eating habits and nutritional choices, and then also managing our stress. So this week, I'm going to talk about nutrition, and next week I'll do stress and time management, and then that'll be it. So the second test that you take, first week of August, will be on this lecture and then next week's lecture. So here's the definition of nutrition: food or nourishment needed to keep an organism growing, healthy, and viable, which we all need from the time we're conceived. Nutrition is very important, obviously. There's a lot of media about nutrition. There's always new information. But one thing that stuck out in my mind when I was taking nutrition classes as a student was that the impact that nutrition has on your long-term health. There's only two behaviors that have more effect on your long-term health than nutrition, and those two behaviors are both destructive behaviors: smoking and abusing or excessive alcohol. So that just puts nutrition up there as like such an important part of our lives that we have control over in terms of our long-term health and preventing diseases and living a long, good quality life. So let me backspace. So since it has such a huge impact on our lives, I like to give my students a chance to think. If we were doing this face to face, maybe I'll bring it up in our weekly WebEx meeting, but I like students to kind of think ahead about how do you choose your food, like when you get up in the morning or when you go to the grocery store. What are some factors that come into play? So some of the things in society that lead to how we choose our food are on the slide: advertisement, availability, convenience, habit. Think about, like, especially being college students, when you are on campus and you only have a select places to eat, and the menu isn't as wide as it would be as if you were fixing your own food in your own home. So convenience plays a big role in college students, and habit. Also finances, which isn't up here, but finances sometimes dictates how we choose our food. Positive associations, ethnic heritage, social pressure, and I'll explain what that is. You can kind of think about what you think social pressure might mean when it comes to choosing our food, and then region of the country. Depending, if you live in Pennsylvania, you're known for your Philly cheesesteaks and your soft pretzels. If you live in Maryland, we're known for our hard crabs and Old Bay and seafood. So depending on where you live can also choose your food. In terms of social pressure, it's sort of like peer pressure, but having to do with food. So like, say if there's certain food that you don't normally eat, like you never step foot in McDonald's, but for some reason you're on a road trip with some friends and they stop, you're not in control, and they go to McDonald's. You might feel a certain sense of pressure to order something from McDonald's, even though that's not something that you would choose. So that would be a definition of social pressure when it comes to food. Because of the type of class this is, I like to give you just like really simple things to help you incorporate it into your daily life. So think of the ABCs of nutrition. A being adequate in nutrients, and I'm going to give you the categories of nutrients. There's only 6 that we have to deal with. Balance your calories you eat with your physical activity, and you can look at balance in different ways, but this is the way I'm going to define balance in terms of the ABCs. Choose sensibly. So we just talked about how we choose our food. A C could also stand for calorie control if you're looking into weight management. So also, like I said in the last slide, I like to give my students some everyday simple things just to incorporate into their life. So some simple nutrition drinks. Some simple nutrition tips is that you want to drink a lot of water. So to kind of build a new habit of staying hydrated, One of the tips is to drink a glass of water first thing in the morning, as soon as you wake up. I particularly like to do that one. I've done it a long time, and when I don't do it, I feel parched. I feel like I really need it when I wake up. Eat one green food per day. As you get older, you incorporate more variety into your diet, but sometimes when you're younger, sometimes the green food goes by the wayside. So add that as a simple nutrition tip. Ditch the sugary food. Eat more plant-based food. That kind of goes along with the green food per day. Just showing that there's less saturated fat, and there's research has been shown that people who eat more plant-based foods rather than animal-based foods sometimes have lower occurrences of diseases. So eat more plant-based food. So we're talking about the ABCs of nutrition. We are talking about some simple nutrition tips. Moving myself around here. So I like to also, in that same vein, give my students 3 principles of good eating. We already talked about balance, so you can kind of go along with, we talked about balancing our calories with our activity. You can also balance your choices across the nutrients, which is coming up. Variety. You don't want to eat one nutrient, all carbs and no protein, or all protein and no carbs. You want to have a variety from a lot of the sources so that you have all the required nutrients, that adequate nutrient part of the ABCs. Moderation. You don't have to give something up. You just don't want to eat too much of a certain food. You don't want to eat too little, and you don't want to eat too much. So moderation is right in the middle. It's exactly what it means in other contexts. You drink in moderation. You want to eat certain foods that might not be considered, healthy. If it's something that you want, you don't necessarily have to deprive yourself. Just think about it. Oh, I'm going to eat this in moderation because I like it. Not too much or not too little of a certain food group or nutrient. So we're talking about nutrients now in terms of variety and balance and adequate nutrients. Here they are. There are 6 nutrients for health. There's over 40, close to 50 nutrients overall. They're classified into 6 categories. Okay, so you only have to kind of focus on 6 nutrients for health. Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, which are put into the macronutrient group, which is what our body needs the most of in terms of percentage. And also another definition of macronutrients is that they're energy nutrients, which means that they're measured in calories. So you look at a food label, you look at how many calories per gram of carbohydrates, how many calories per gram of protein. That's where you get your calories. Those are your macronutrients. Your micronutrients are vitamins, minerals, and water. These are referred to as regulatory nutrients. They work with your body in terms of functioning and regulating your body, not giving you energy. They're not measured in calories. So micronutrients are not measured in calories. Vitamins, minerals, water. Doesn't mean you need less of them. The micro doesn't mean smaller. They are in smaller amounts, and they are measured differently, but they're just as important as macronutrients in terms of total body functioning and brain. Your body key source of energy comes from carbohydrates. Your brain thrives on carbohydrates, so it's not recommended to cut out carbohydrates. A lot of people give carbohydrates a bad rap. It's only because of the sugar part of the simple carbohydrates as opposed to complex carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, proteins, fat fall under macro. Vitamins, minerals, water fall under micro. So, know the 6 nutrients for health. This is an exercise class. Our last lecture was about physical activity. So far we've talked about Healthy People 2020, we've talked about wellness, and we've talked about fitness and physical activity. So now we're jumping into nutrition. So since this is a kinesiology class that's focused on physical activity, you want to look at how nutrition helps with keeping your energy level up. Improving your athletic performance. Think about those skill-related components of physical fitness that we talked about. that you need to perform in athletics. Optimizes your physical conditioning, improves recovery from fatigue. So nutrition plays a huge role, not just in everyday life in terms of what we said in the first slide, being one of the most important things that you can control for overall health, but also in terms of your performance in sports, which most of you in this class are interested in. And even if you're just interested in just working out and not playing sports, nutrition is definitely going to make that better. So there are a couple terms that one of the topics for the research papers that I had down was something called superfoods. Most of you have probably heard that term. It's sometimes looked down upon by dietitians and nutritionists because they're saying, okay, superfoods is just kind of like a hyped up term to get people to eat healthier. Basically, what superfoods are what we refer to as a nutrient-dense food, meaning that food, relative to the number of calories it's giving you, is also providing you with a high number of substantial nutrients. So spinach is a superfood. Sweet potatoes, there's lots of superfoods. Oatmeal, yogurt, eggs. You're going to get nutritional value from those foods, as opposed to the other term that most of us are familiar with. We might not go around saying, oh, that's a nutrient-dense food. Now you will, now that you know what it means. But before, you probably have said, oh, that's an empty calorie. Like, why are you eating that bag of chips? Why are you drinking that, can of Coca-Cola? There's very little nutritional value in relation to its calories. So that's called empty calories. So the goal is, throughout your variety and your balance and your moderation and your ABCs of nutrition, is to incorporate a good number of nutrient-dense choices as opposed to empty calorie choices. Not giving up empty calories completely, because then that makes you have a sense of being deprived of something, and then you will you'll be more negative than positive. So overall, go for the nutrient-dense choices. Limit, moderate, give yourself a treat, if you want to refer to it that way, of an empty calorie. And then there's something that was developed in 2011 to take over the food guide pyramid. It's called the MyPlate. So it's only been around since 2011. It's 2020 now. So a lot of the children that are being, in elementary schools now, that's what they've been taught from day one, is this MyPlate. So the MyPlate has messages. It's a little bit more user-friendly. We're all used to eating off of a plate. We're not used to eating off of a pyramid, which it was before. The pyramid, did its job, but it wasn't as user-friendly. Now we look at the plate and we're saying, okay, this is the way my plate should look. I should have half of it filled with fruits and vegetables. That's where I'm going to get my nutrient-dense foods. The other half will come from the grain group and the protein group. And that's why I make sure, I don't want to just eat all protein. I don't want to just eat all carbohydrates. I want to have a balance. So half my plate is fruits and vegetables. Half my plate is grains and protein. It's something that you can visualize and something that you can teach easily, especially to children. And then the other group that is represented is our dairy groups, in order for us to get our calcium and our vitamin D, which there are alternatives to dairy for people that are lactose intolerant or vegan. But you still have to get that nutritional minerals and vitamins that you would get with just an alternative. And then I always tell my students, this is something sort of that you can carry over into your everyday life. Am I hungry, or is it just my appetite? My appetite is my emotional desire for food. Oh, that advertisement looks good. Oh, the donuts I just rode by, on the road smell good. I'm going to pull in and I'm going to grab some donuts. I just ate dinner. So physiologically, I don't have a need for food. I might have a need for food when I wake up in the morning and I haven't eaten anything since 8 o'clock last night. That's my hunger. But if I've just eaten and I smell something or I see something or something triggers an emotional response, that's my appetite. And then we have two terms. Obesogenic is a term that describes an environment that promotes overeating. We're kind of fixated and focused on more larger portion sizes. So I like to introduce obesogenic, and then I also like to introduce a term called creeping obesity. obesity. Where we